Hello everyone, my name is Clayton de Oliveira and this is my informative speech. As a topic for my informative speech, I chose to talk about the country of Brazil. I was born in Brazil, I grew up down there until I was 15 years old, so I got my elementary and middle school education in Brazil. So I got a basic history of Brazil when I was a kid. And my goal for this speech is for you, my audience, to be able to recognize a few facts and basic information about Brazil. I want you to know the geographic location of Brazil in the globe. Um, what is the official language in Brazil, and how Brazil got its name and how it became a country. I know that some of you may already know or have a good guess to the answer to these questions, but I guarantee if you pay close attention, the correct answers might surprise you. And you'll probably retain the facts for the rest of your life. Well, let's start with the location of Brazil. Brazil is located in the South American continent, in the South Hemisphere. So there, you already know where Brazil is. And if you didn't know that, it may surprise you that Brazil is the biggest country in South America, and the only country that speaks Portuguese in South America. So we know that the official language of Brazil is Portuguese. Brazil is also the fifth biggest country in the world, both by land and population. Brazil's population is about 198 million right now. Now let's talk a little about the history of Brazil and how it became a country. It all starts in the late 15th century. The major countries at the time were looking for ways to expand their empires. And how usually they did this was by finding new routes to trade by sea or new land for exploration and colonization. And in the year 1500, a Portuguese explorer by the name of Pedro Álvares Cabral was asked by the Portuguese crown to set out on an expedition to find a new route by sea to trade with India. And somehow, along the way, they made a wrong turn off the coast of Africa and discovered this new land. And upon discovery, which happened on April 22nd of the year 1500, Cabral called this new land Vera Cruz. They matted with the native Indians and traded gifts, and on the first Sunday after the discovery, they celebrated the first Catholic Mass, which happened on April 26, 1500. And Brazil is actually the biggest Catholic country in the world as of right now. Well, the Portuguese, not knowing if the new land was a large island or an entire new continent, Cabral sent word back to the crown and proceeded to their final destination, which was in India. And afterwards reached the crown, they sent out new expeditions to explore this new land. With the new expeditions came the exploration of the land for the valuables, anything they could extract from the land at that time. And soon enough, the Portuguese discovered the abundant amount of the Brazil wood tree, which at the time was valued not only for the durable lumber but for its ink that came within its bark that had this blazing red colorant. And the Portuguese called this color brasa, which means blazing in Portuguese. And so, for its economical importance in the land, Brazil was renamed in 1511 Brazil. The Portuguese soon realized that the new land was very vast and of enormous diversity. The soil was rich for crops, and it was plenty of it. And the Portuguese relationship with the natives was good terms at first. But soon, with the shortage of labor, conflicts arise with the explorer trying to force the natives to work, which in the end really didn't work out so well. So at the time, like the other empires were doing, the Portuguese turned into the African slaves for forced labor. And it's estimated that between the period of colonization until the abolition of slavery in Brazil, which happened actually in 1888, that 6 to 13.5 million African slaves came to Brazil. During the period of colonization, Brazil was a major producer of sugarcane, cotton, cocoa bean for chocolate, and rubber. These were all very important economic activities generated profit to the Portuguese crown. It was not until the early part of the 19th century that a movement led by Dom Peter I, which was the regent prince of Portugal, and he oversaw the colony for the Portuguese crown, that he decided to proclaim the independence of Brazil from Portuguese Empire, which happened on September 7th, 1822. Excuse me. So the independence of Brazil from Portugal happened on September 7th, 1822. And its famous shout that Dom Peter I said, which was Independencia ou Morte, which means independence or death. But there was not really any big independence war. Let's say how the colonies got their independence from the British Empire. In Brazil's case, was more of a smooth transaction, where Dom Peter I, who was pretty much already in control in Brazil, got to stay in control, and Portugal still had the exclusivity when it came to trade from Brazil and whatever Brazil had to offer at the time. Dom Pedro I implemented the monarch system of ruling and became Brazil's first emperor. Well, a few decades passed, and in 1888, slavery was abolished in Brazil, and a few conflicts arise, and the military decided to overthrow the government. And so in November 15th, 1889, Brazil declared its proclamation of republic, where a influential military leader, Marshal Deodoro da Fonseca, was the leader that proclaimed Brazil's as a republic, and he became Brazil's first president. Well, Brazil was then renamed the Federative Republic of Brazil, and since the proclamation of the republic, Brazil has had a total of 36 presidents, and Brazil's current president is Dilma Rousseff, the first female president in South America. So that's a little basic history of how Brazil became a country, and there's plenty more to talk about Brazil. The diversity of people, the different regions inside Brazil, and what is mostly talked about these days about Brazil is the growing economy. I don't think really have time for all of that. And as I conclude this speech, I wanted to recap the main points we talked about in Brazil, which was, the location of Brazil is in the South American continent. The official language in Brazil is Portuguese. Brazil was discovered and colonized by the Portuguese, and Brazil got its name from the valued Brazilwood tree. Well, I hope you enjoyed the speech and all the facts that I presented. I hope you can also retain all these facts and be able to, maybe correct or just show your knowledge about Brazil. And I thank you for your attention and your time. And until next time.